true, in fact, of the various seasons of our lives. What we need to carry with us and what we need to carry it all changes from one season of life to another. It's not necessarily the same throughout our whole lives. And thinking about how we pack for a trip can be helpful to us as we think about how we might pack for a particular season of life we're about to enter into. Each season has its particular needs and demands. Each season requires us to fill, we might say, our backpack with the items that are suited for that season. And yet I wonder how many of us are still carrying around things we really don't need and might be wise to let go of some of them. That certainly applies to physical possessions. What we needed in the past may not be what we need to possess in the future or even the present. For instance, as a lifelong sailor, I learned, much like the author here, Bodie, by starting very small. I began with an 8-foot rowboat that a neighbor let me earn by mowing his lawn for a whole summer. Then I bought a small sailboat, and a little bigger sailboat, and a little bigger sailboat. If any of you have been boat owners, you know how that goes. But then the time came when it didn't make sense. It wasn't right. It didn't fit our needs, even though it was part of our wants. It didn't fit our needs to continue to have a big boat. And that was a loss. And we grieved, in some ways still continue to grieve. But, and here's the really cool part, I have this boat. When we arrived here, within 2 weeks, I went to the Meadows, to a lake over there, where the Sarasota Model Yacht Club was sailing radio-controlled sailboats. And I became fascinated. And I met an incredible group of folks that have become some dear friends. Our own John Metzger is part of our group. Bob Phelps is part of our sailing group. Sarasota Model Yacht Club is made up of folks, probably 80% have sailed all their lives and 20% have not, but we welcome everybody. We gather 3 times a week, as I said, and have a great time. This is the boat that I need at this point in my life journey. I don't need a 31-foot boat anymore. I've got a 39-inch boat. It's suited for this time of my life. And so possessions need to be looked at and say, is this what I really need? Likewise, I think we need to look at not only possessions, but also relationships. Some relationships that had tremendous meaning in the past may not be what we need in the present and future. Some relationships, maybe we need to let go of them. But likewise, some new relationships may be just what we need, and they need to be nurtured and developed and cherished. So sometimes relationships change as well as we move through the seasons of life. And lastly, but certainly not least, while we are packing for this season of life and what's to come, we might do well to look at what's in our spiritual backpack. What are we carrying with us as spiritual resources for the journey we're on? As a spiritual director, I found it can be incredibly helpful to invite folks to sort of conduct a survey by asking, what do we really need? What is it you really need to pack spiritually for this current season of life? For instance, you might ask, what beliefs have you long held that still work for you and are worth continuing to carry along in your journey? What still works for you? But also, you might ask, what beliefs have you outgrown or no longer work for you? What beliefs did you take on as a child or an adolescent that you've grown beyond, maybe? And maybe you can let them go. What beliefs have you outgrown? And also, what new beliefs, new way of seeing things, new way of relating to God, new way of experiencing the Spirit of God, what new ways need to be fully embraced by you, for they work for you now at this stage of life? And what spiritual practices do you want to take with you into this new season of life? If you're a walker, if you like to walk, have you ever tried walking prayer or meditation? If you're a lover of nature, have you ever tried meditating on one small piece of creation as it moves through its seasons of life? For example, one time while I was on retreat in Vermont, I went up in the woods and I sat and I chose one leaf, and this was in October, as the foliage season was in full bloom. And I found a leaf that was just beginning to turn colors, and over the next 7 days I went back to that one leaf and took pictures of it for the 7 days and captured its transformation from green to bright red. Simple things can be a powerful experience. If you're an introvert, have you tried a silent retreat? If you're an extrovert, have you tried maybe reading to someone who's lost their eyesight? Have you considered a study or prayer or social justice group, or maybe spiritual direction? There's no end to the spiritual practices that we can pack in our little backpack for any particular season of life. So I want to ask you and invite you really to take some time this coming week and maybe do a little inventory about what you're carrying with you through life and what spiritual practices might be helpful to you for the season you are in. And there's one last thing I would urge all of us to pack. And this might sound a little strange at first, but given the world as it is, I would encourage us all to pack a spirit of gentleness, of kindness. I think our world needs that very badly, very badly. So yes, I'm thinking of gentleness toward others, but I'm also thinking of being gentle with ourselves, being kind to ourselves. We can be our own worst critic, harsh on ourselves sometimes. So I invite us to pack in our backpack a spirit of gentleness. For it seems that as we are more gentle with ourselves, it's easier to be gentle with others. It can make a world of difference if we all pack a spirit of gentleness. The quote from Mary Oliver, the poet, at the top of our bulletin this morning says, "Tell me what it is that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life." I would narrow that down just a little bit to this. What do you plan to do with this wonderful and precious season of your life? Wherever you are in the journey, it's never too late to make it a bit more wonderful and precious for each and every day. And maybe, like the Israelites, we need to let something go or pick something up more suited for the journey. So I invite you to ask yourself this week, what is it that you really need for this season of your life? And to do that with a spirit of gentleness. Amen.